else.
Right, I was just watching an interview with Frank Warren on Boxing Social, and Boxing Social, they're a relatively new channel. They just do interviews, so they don't do the boxing news how I do it, and Hatman and many others, of course. They just do the interviews much in the same vein as IFL. They're a British one, so good luck to them, and I fully support them and all that. I enjoy some of their content, and I know, who knows, they are a relatively new channel, so who knows that out of everybody who does interviews with fighters, these guys could be the ones to rival IFL at some point. Not really music to the ears of Kugan Cassius, of course, because he doesn't like any kind of competition. He gets a little bit babyish about it, as far as I hear, but I don't know that bit for a fact. Anyway, moving on, the interview that Boxer Social had with Frank Warren, it was a pretty good one. They've talked about Tyson Fury and Carl Frampton and things like that. Now, of course, he got onto the subject again. People, I wish that you people would stop asking Frank Warren about Eddie Hearn's business, because you're never going to hear anything positive. Why? Because they're rivals. Frank Warren is very, very bitter when it comes to Eddie Hearn, and every time you ask him, he just sees red, and he just goes in and he speaks without thinking, is what he does. But unfortunately, he's a British promoter, in the sense that those clowns abroad who hang on to every word that's mentioned about Joshua or Eddie Hearn, and they cling to it as if say, well, a British promoter is saying this, so therefore it must be right. And then they carry on making their rhetoric garbage lying ass videos. Okay, that's pretty much what they do. So it annoys me a little bit that Frank keeps on giving these people fire. Okay, even though that if Frank Warren was to try and move into the American market, these guys would throw him under the bus. Why? Because he's the wrong colour. That's the truth of the matter. Now, he was asked about the Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder thing, and of course he'd already covered it. But this one, he did kind of, shall we say, double standards would probably be something that we could mention, because like before, he was saying about many reasons why that this fight fell apart in his opinion. Now, bearing in mind, you see, Frank Warren, as I've already said, he's a rival of Eddie Hearn Matchroom, just like he was a rival of Eddie Hearn's dad, Barry. So there's no love lost, and he's always going to hate Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn's young, he's arrogant, and he's brash, and he's come in and just took over. Okay, and for me, I wish Frank Warren all the best. I wish that he would put on some better shows for us boxing fans, to maybe put a bit of pressure on Matchroom and Sky to give us better. And Matchroom are already giving us great fights, but if there's a bit of pressure there, they're going to start upping their game, right? So that's great stuff. But also, you have to remember that Frank Warren, he's been around for a very, very long time, and he's good friends with Shelly Finkel. So he's always going to be siding with Shelly Finkel as well, okay? I'm not saying that, these two are in bed together and giving each other, little bum tickles or whatever. I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is that these two have history. They've worked together on plenty of occasions. So whatever it is that Frank Warren says about this whole situation, he's always going to take the side with Shelly Finkel. But his reasoning, and this is Frank Warren's reasoning, which totally contradicts what he said before, was that the reason that this fight fell apart isn't necessarily because there's no date and venue. He conceded on that one. So all you Eddie Hearn, Joshua haters out there, he keeps saying, well, Deontay Wilder, why should he sign a contract? Yes, okay, fine, he agreed with the money, and he agreed in the UK, and he agreed everything else. But you guys were going on about how you don't like the fact that he should have to sign a contract with no date and venue, even though this is normal process. For most fights, it's normal process. It's just that you don't get to hear about it until it's already announced, even though the fight may have been signed a week or two previous, okay? But this was the one that they're running with. And of course, these guys will big up Frank Warren. He's the best, he knows what's going on and blah, blah, blah. But he said that it's not about the date and venue, because he knows himself. He signs fights without a date and venue at some point, and then date and venue gets added a little bit later. Sometimes a date and venue will get put in first, and then they put a fight on that card, if that makes sense. So Frank Warren knew not to slip that one out. So what he said was, it's a rematch. The rematch clause is the issue, where Joshua gets a rematch if he was to beat Wilder, but Wilder doesn't get a rematch if he was to beat Joshua. And he's seen that as a big, major problem. Now, here's my answer. Joseph Parker, when he fought Joshua, he had one belt. Joshua had two belts. Parker never got a rematch. Now Joshua has 3 belts. Guess what? Wilder has 1 belt, much like Parker did. And Wilder's getting paid double what Parker did. So therefore, why should he get a rematch? Let's switch it up a little bit more. Let's look at Frank Warren fighters. Liam Smith, when he took on Saul Canelo Alvarez was not the WBO mandatory. It was pretty much a voluntary. Now, had Liam Smith not have fought Canelo, he would have had to fight him the next fight or very soon after, because he would have been the mandatory. But at that time, he wasn't. Correct me if I'm wrong on this one, people, because I'm going on memory. But when Liam Smith fought Saul Canelo Alvarez, Canelo beat Liam Smith. Liam Smith didn't get a rematch. Let's look at other fights. Terence Crawford versus Juice Ndongo. Terence Crawford beats Juice Ndongo. Did Juice Ndongo get a rematch? No, he didn't, did he? No. When Anthony Joshua beat Charles Martin, did Charles Martin get a rematch? Nope. No, he didn't. And there's plenty more examples of that when a champion defends their belt, whether it be against a voluntary or whether it be for a unification. Look at Jarrett Hurd, Erislandy Lara. Jarrett Hurd beat him. Has Erislandy Lara got a rematch? No. So, again, there's just another example. Now, that's not to say that I'm against Wilder getting a rematch. I'm not against it. I'm just saying that that kind of thing shouldn't hold up. Especially when he's been running around saying it's not about money, it's about legacy, and I don't care about the money, I'll fight him in his back garden for free. I just want undisputed. I promise you I love my fans and all that kind of garbage. So when the opportunity comes up and you sit on a contract for over a week and then want to send the contract back with comments without it being signed about a rematch that really, if many other fighters on the planet don't get one, like Triple G against Canelo. Triple G didn't have a rematch clause if he lost. You see? A side, B side. This is how it works. This is the way of the world, people, whether you like it or not. That is what it is. So, no, I mean, Wilder shouldn't have a rematch, but if he insisted on one, I mean, I don't have a problem with the rematch, but that shouldn't stop a fight. So in some ways, where Frank Warren is trying to take the side of Shelley Finkel, or Shirley Winkle, whatever it is you want to call him, he's almost kicked the boot in, because Shelley Finkel was going more on about, not necessarily the rematch, because they pretty much already conceded, if necessary, then we not have that. But the date and venue is a problem. But you see, Frank Warren has confirmed that date and venue should never, ever be a problem. As long as you know that the fight is next, for both fighters, it's not a problem. And you know the rough time, which would be October in Cardiff. So, Frank Warren, where he's tried to give the boot to Eddie Hearn to defend Shelley Finkel, he's actually kicked in Shelley Finkel on this one. Because he's proved that a rematch isn't really necessary, even though he's tried to say that, he's champion, he should get it. But there's many, many fights in history. His own fighters have been there many times and not had it. When Billy Joe Saunders defeated Andy Lee, did Andy Lee get a rematch? No, he didn't. So, again, just another example. But anyway, of course, I mean, I'm not saying that if there's a mandatory, then you should get a rematch, because no. Say for example, Joshua against Takam. Okay, that was a mandatory. And had Takam have beaten Joshua, there wouldn't have been a rematch. Or there shouldn't be a rematch. So for mandatories, yeah, I mean, I can see no. Champion against champion, hey, fair enough. But if Wilder is deserving of a rematch, even though he's done nothing himself except embarrass himself and embarrass that WBC title and embarrass all the fans who keep having to come up with excuses all the time to try and shine this fake light on Joshua and Eddie Hearn, to try and make it look like, deflect the blame, even though it's obvious to any logical people that where the blame lies. So Frank Warren, you tried, mate, you did try. I wish you wouldn't try, because you and Eddie Hearn should really be working together. I'm not saying be best friends or anything like that, but for British boxing, do it. You speaking bad about Eddie Hearn isn't going to convince anybody. All this does is just give a little bit of feed to those who hate Eddie Hearn and Joshua already. It gives them more reasons to make videos. then I have to make reasons or videos to give the true reasons to counter these clowns. Don't particularly want to be doing it. So Frank, be a good stand-up lad. Stop talking about Eddie Hearn. Boxing Social, I wish you all the best. Stop asking him about Eddie Hearn. IFL, stop asking him about Eddie Hearn. Michelle Joy Phelps, Seconds Out, all these kind of ones who just do interviews. When you speak with Frank Warren, do not ask him about Eddie Hearn, because you're never going to get anything positive out of it. Maybe, I don't know, you just want the headline for your video, much like this one. Just think about it. Anyway, drop your thoughts below, click that thumbs up, subscribe, catch you all on the next video.